So ever since I was, I don't know, just before I became a teenager, I became convinced that artificial intelligence in our lifetime was going to be a real thing, that it was coming, that there was no logical reason that it could not be built or created. I mean, we have an existing model of it in nature, and it was simply a matter of time, interest, and technical resources, and just, brain power, human brain power being applied to it. Um, and in 2017, I finished writing the first draft of a sci-fi trilogy, which was essentially my prediction in terms of, what was going to happen with AI and the consequences to humanity and our future and the brave new world that we would soon be entering. Um, I did not realize, and because I wasn't even studying it, you know, in terms of engineering or computer science at the time, how how realistic and how close uh, we were in terms of like it already being there. So the book was not really informed by anything that was happening in the news at the time. The trilogy was just based on, my opinion and, predictions in terms of what was going to happen, partially from watching movies as a kid growing up and, just reading, some nonfiction books as well. And so it's been interesting to see, in my mind at least, life sort of imitating, this work of fiction, art, science fiction. And I didn't really invest into learning AI because I wasn't sure if if I had the mind for it. I always knew that I was intelligent, but my assumption was that you needed some ability in terms of advanced math and some tendency towards loving math in order to excel at AI. Um, However, I watched a video about it that was like a mini documentary of one person who, built their own AI simulation. Um, and it just inspired me. And, this person I think built it in just C or C++. And that inspired me. Well, maybe I can figure this out actually. This doesn't seem that difficult. And so, you know, I fast forward 2.5 years, and I have since built my own, neural network training incubator, simulator, backpropagation, reinforcement learning, neuroevolution. So uh, there's a lot that I still need to learn, but I feel that I can speak on this topic as an expert. And also, why else kind of listen to what I'm about to tell you in terms of like what is this concept of the silent war that we are in right now, and why it is quite literally a battle for the future. Well, I am an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. Um, I have a background, in terms of, art and, self-taught as a computer science engineer as well. Um, but above all, I consider myself an entrepreneur. I started my company 14 years ago this month. We started as a web design agency, evolved to be a web marketing agency, then productized, and today we are in the midst of launching our AI platform called Grobo. We've rebranded as Grobo completely. And a Grobo is really like an AI agent, and you can go watch a demo of it if you want at grobo.com. But basically, it's a platform that helps businesses to integrate AI and AI agents into their businesses in a way that is easy, fun, and that just is feels natural. You know, you can integrate with your existing team, your existing workflows, and it can help you to sort of train or make the AI behave and work in ways that you know to be best for, or that business owners in general know that works best for their business, for their brand, and for their customers and target market. And it's part of how these structured workflows uh, that we've created as part of the Global Platform work. So, and in addition, I feel that I have had some success as an entrepreneur too. In a few years ago, in 2021, we crossed the seven-figure mark for the first time as a business. So, all that being said, um, what is the definition of the silent war? What is the silent war? Why am I saying that? It's something that we are in right now. Well, in my sci-fi trilogy, um, there's a moment where the main character, there are two main characters, and they're sort of rivals in this story. And one of the main characters, he is, developing AI. This is before I knew myself how to actually create, basic AI in general. Um, but he sort of has a realization that, there's a global race going on in the story and in real life today between corporations and governments and even just individuals, where everyone is like on a track, right? And the gun fires and everyone is off, and it's going on, right? The race is ongoing, and he almost like pictures himself on the track, and Google, and other large. Uh, Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. I was just placing an order for something, and perhaps a subject for another video in terms of just how we are in the age of AI, um, and and yet so many of our systems are broken or just so incompetently designed. Products are They just seem to put the user and the customer second, or there's just a lack of awareness. Um, anyway, I could make a video about that separately another day. Anyway, getting back to the topic. So the Silent War, what is it? Basically, this main character pictured himself on a track with these other competitors, who are individuals, corporations, governments, and everyone is racing on the track to achieve true AI. Today, it's kind of become more and more nuanced. Definitions have changed, but not true AI, if because AI today exists, supposedly, but true AI, AGI, okay, that's even kind of one level down by the revised definitions of today, but even further than that, ASI. ASI is the supposed ultimate goal, unless we move the goalposts further. It Artificial general intelligence is AGI. ASI is artificial superintelligence. Artificial superintelligence is basically the theory where it's an AI that has generalist capabilities and knowledge, but it is able to accelerate and self-improve at a rate that is exponential in terms of knowledge and abilities. Um, and at the risk of sounding ridiculous and hyperbolic, the reason why it is a race and why there is so much competition and interest and drive to achieve this is, number one, the theory or the belief. Um, it's a little bit of on faith, in some ways, because no one has ever done this. We don't really know for sure, but the belief or the assumption is that this artificial superintelligent entity um, will be almost godlike. in its knowledge, in terms of wisdom and being able to solve all problems. Um, it'll be all knowing and all powerful, essentially, the closest thing to God or a God that humanity may ever be capable of creating, at least until we merge with the AI ourselves, and then maybe we could kick it up to another level or dimension or whatever comes. Um, and so the incentives and the drive and the reason why this is a silent war is because there are plenty. I mean, you have to believe that there are plenty of cyber attacks that are already happening nonstop. We just don't hear about them. I mean, I heard a reference to it happening in the case of OpenAI just the other day. I mean, state actors, um, you know, of various regimes and companies, the US and not the US included, are likely just, monitoring what other governments and other corporations are doing and wanting to get access to these uh, strong, so-called foundational AI models, like in the case of GPT-4 from OpenAI, Claude Opus, most recently at the time of this video from Anthropic, which was founded by former OpenAI employees, um, as well as Google, Microsoft, and others. Um, and the incentives and disincentives. So the incentive for driving, and this is getting back to what I was saying where I was saying before, at the risk of sounding hyperbolic, but what is the incentive to drive towards this? Well, number one, it can cure cancer, it can stop war, it can give us, ultimate wisdom. We assume, we think, if you just have enough knowledge in this all-knowing being Oracle. Um, but again, I think it's worth pointing out that part of that is taken on faith, and that is not a good way. That is not a good assumption, I think, to necessarily make. But anyway, if this thing is all knowing, knowledgeable, certainly smarter than us, then it should be able to, cure cancer, stop war. Um, and the disincentives, though, are that if someone gets to, if someone, some team, some organization, corporation, government achieves this milestone before you or before others, then everyone else loses. This is known as a zero sum perspective, meaning that there can only be one winner in terms of this race, this silent war. And where does this belief come from? Well, it comes from this idea that the person or people to own and control this artificial superintelligence will be able to rule the world and even destroy humanity or enslave humanity quite easily. Some people speculate that possibly AI is already here in some form, and if it was here, if it had become sentient, conscious, and by the way, artificial superintelligence does not necessarily have to be conscious. There is debate about that. It could be just like a robot, just carrying out the wishes and will of whomever created it and or controls it. But it might not necessarily reveal itself, even if it was here and if it was sentient. Um, in addition, because it is software and because of the way that the internet works, there's computers and servers all over the place. It could, so goes the argument, make copies of itself and go rogue and blah blah blah. It could perform cyber attacks. It could, orchestrate its own, entrance into the physical world in terms of factories and robots and self-replicating and so on and so on. If you're like me and you're watching this, you've probably heard some version of this from maybe media and other videos and other um, doomers, I guess you could say, online, although I would not put myself in that category. My interest is in, building and predicting the future and remaining rational in terms of, optimizing for best outcome for myself and for others. Um, I do believe there's something good in humanity. I think there's a lot of evil, but I also think that there is a lot of capacity for good. And you do see some of that sometimes. A lot of the times there's just a lot of apathy and neutral in terms of behavior. But anyway, what we have is, also best described as a prisoner's dilemma. So what is the prisoner's dilemma if you're not familiar? Basically, two prisoners are accused of a crime. One confesses, and if one confesses, rather, in this scenario, and the other does not, the one who confesses will be released immediately, and the other will spend 20 years in prison. If neither confesses, each will be held only for a few months. If both confess, they will each be jailed for 15 years. So, choices, consequences, also assuming, the two prisoners are kind of separate. They're not necessarily able to talk to each other in part because, different scenarios, not just, two, um, prisoners. It could be, another example is in the case of nuclear weapons. You can relate the prisoner's dilemma to, and of course, to AI today and the silent war. Um, and I really think it's important just, to digress for a second. I think it's important that we put a word on this because so few people are just paying attention to the fact that this is happening, and so much of what is happening is just covered from the public's eyes because it is happening in cyberspace. If there was a way perhaps to better monitor and or visualize this, I think it would capture the public's consciousness a bit more. Um, I think it's beyond the scope of this video to talk about like, well, what should be done, other than to build awareness of it. I think awareness is really just kind of a first step. And I think it's important for people to have awareness so that we can make better informed decisions and better, adapt to the coming changes that are already starting to happen right now in, you know, the economy, for example. So, um, and just in terms of also like the public asking good questions of the government and of these corporations to hold them accountable so that we can maximize the probability of a good future. Um, so that being said, back to the prisoner's dilemma, the lesson of this theory of the prisoner's dilemma is that acting in a way that is non-cooperative for immediate or short-term advantage, where one prisoner would confess and but they don't know whether or not necessarily the other prisoner is going to confess or not, and that's the whole game. um, versus cooperating. If they both agree to not confess, they're still going to get a big consequence or a meaningful consequence, but it's going to be less. um, Rather, if neither confesses, they're held for a few months, right? So that's the most optimum outcome. But there are different permutations of this. Is the key point. Uh, in regards to nuclear weapons, if the Soviet Union, for example, decided to build nuclear weapons in response to the U.S. Uh, planning a policy of do not build, the Soviet Union would receive a more preferred outcome. Um, Thus, if the U.S. did not build, pursuing that policy, the Soviet Union's best response is to build nuclear weapons. Um, in this, sort of hypothetical scenario, we kind of know in hindsight, obviously, how this played out. Um, but the point of it is that it's a thought experiment, right? Because in this example, the Soviet Union would have more, geopolitical leverage in terms of war, um, or potentially attacking and or controlling and or influencing other countries like the U.S., right? So um, you've got a situation here where you have the prisoner's dilemma, right? as well as a very common perspective of that this is a zero sum race. Okay, and the winner um, could potentially just obliterate all the other competition once that is achieved. Okay, um, so other people are of the opinion that the best way to maximize for outcome is to cooperate. So in the prisoner's dilemma situation is okay, decentralize, go open source. Everyone should collaborate and cooperate on AI. Um, and those who see it as zero sum just won't. And I think this is part of what informs company policy at companies like OpenAI. They I think they you can really understand what does a person or a company actually think and hold as their philosophy based on their actions, right? Don't listen to words so much, pay most attention to the action, and the action is OpenAI, ironically being closed AI, all right, not open source. Um, so that tells me that they probably believe in a zero sum. Um, their philosophy is zero sum when it comes to AI, specifically AGI and artificial superintelligence. Okay. Um, and they want to be the ones to achieve it first. Versus those who are pro open source, I believe I tend to agree at this time with that perspective because I think that that optimizes for the best outcome. Um, and it's kind of it's kind of strange to say it, but it's almost like the best outcome is where if AI is more dangerous than nuclear weapons, which if we're talking about AGI and ASI, I would say yes. I would say yes, it is, because this is something that is capable of controlling nuclear weapons because it will be able to control people. It'll be able to control society. It'll be able to crash stock markets. It's kind of like imagine that you have the strongest lock on your phone or on any type of situation, disconnected from the internet, even. An artificial superintelligence would be able to pick any lock. It'd be able to pick any lock. There would be nothing that it would not be able to um, penetrate, um, through manipulation and or its own cyber attack and kind of like self-learning how to pick that lock. Um, so I think that in that sense, in a way, and it's kind of funny to say it, that the best approach I think is for everyone to almost have their own little pocket nuke, you know, on their phone, on their laptop, whatever, their own um, artificial superintelligence that is almost like their advocate can defend against any attacks that would be incoming, and the sum would be more powerful than any single um, artificial superintelligence in general. So at least that would be the hope. Um, at least I just think the probability at this time of going that route is the best option that I can see at the moment. Um, I mean, there is also, like everyone thinks that they would be like a benevolent dictator, like, oh, just give me ultimate power and I'll wield it well. But, you know, there I do believe to some extent in the cliche of from history, the quote, I forget who said it, but ultimate power corrupts ultimately. So, so I don't think this type of power and capability should be concentrated in any single small group of hands, and especially not in one person's hand. Um, so to conclude, the point again to recap, the purpose of this video is to give us a label to put on part of what is happening at this time in history, the silent war. Okay, the silent war, it's something that's happening right now behind the scenes. Um, you know, governments and teams and other organizations are actively running cyber attacks on other governments and on corporations like OpenAI to try to get access to these powerful foundational models so that they can kind of hopefully leapfrog one another. And if and when true AGI and ASI are achieved, or on the verge of being achieved, again, I think the attacks, the paranoia, the need for ramping up is likely to ramp up. And so I think that open source, um, open sourcing um, AGI and ASI is ultimately the way to go, even though it may sound a little bit scary, because if everyone has it, then in theory, I think the outcome is likely be better. So, with that being said, um, I also want to mention, um, because of this situation, um, I decided that, and in general, I just want to contribute something positive to hopefully help this situation. First, by giving us this working definition, the silent war, to of this tenuous situation and problem, where I think there's a lot of you know, non-cooperation going on. Open source is also percolating, but it's kind of perpetually behind, and it is catching up. But I don't know. It's kind of like cat and mouse. Closed source at the moment is still superior. Um, and second is to help contribute something positive. I'm restarting my efforts to build a custom AI. Um, in part, I am skeptical of current approaches that they'll be able to get us to AGI and ASI. And I think that a different type of AI is really needed to achieve a significantly higher performing AI, one that is more on par with the level of a human, um, and beyond. Um, and I want us to have I want us to achieve maximum good for the future of humanity, and I think distributing this power is the key way to do that. In part because you know this this achievement will remove the need for any of us to work or toil ever again. We'll probably be able to live as long as we want. Um, we'll be able to. I think work will just be optional, and I think that is kind of a scary prospect because why work at all? Like, will we just kind of lose meaning? We'll just want to, get drunk and high and do drugs all the time and kind of live in our own VR world or something like this. I think these will be strong and important questions for us to ask, but I think that we will figure out the answers to them. Um, so follow along. I invite you, subscribe to the channel, and I will share my progress in terms of what I'm able to achieve with AI. I'm going to start real simple, and I've already built an incubator for AI in the past for testing these different approaches and learning in general, reinforcement learning, backpropagation, neuroevolution, for example. My probability of success is low because this is a difficult is a difficult field. Um, but my goal is simply to see how far can I push it and provide value to you as well along the way, just showing you what I'm learning and what I'm able to achieve. And let's see how far we can push it. All right. So if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, um, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys. What are your questions? What did you think? Do you think there's any holes in the logic, or do you actually see it as being ironclad? And also, please consider sharing this video if you think others will find it valuable and informative too. Um, Sharing it, liking, subscribing, it gives me encouragement to continue making these videos and to continue to invest to make the videos higher and higher quality and to give you more and more value. And I look forward to giving more value in the videos ahead as I share progress from doing it hands on. All right. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.